How's it going, all you beautiful people? It's your boy Wardy, and as you can see, we're back at it talking about the Amazons, and I'm jumping right to the chase today because it's the latest update on the Mets managerial front. As I told you, every single thing to a T until the Mets make that inevitable hire, we will be discussing here on the channel. And as these reports indicate, yes, the Mets have officially been granted permission from the Milwaukee Brewers to interview Counsell for the managerial opening. And then we're also going to be getting into an article that came out today from Wolf Salmon on the beat through The Athletic for the Mets. Does a fantastic job on some key updates for not only Counsell and his potential landing in Queens, his dynamic with Stearns, other teams currently showing interest in Counsell, and overall, what is the likelihood here? Are things still in the Mets' favor? Are they not? And plenty more is what we're about to break down. But I want to know your initial reactions to this report that yes, the Mets finally have been granted that interview. And why is this so important? Well, the Milwaukee Brewers did something that they haven't done over the past 3 years since Steve Cohen became owner, and that's every single time, every offseason, the Mets have tried interviewing either David Stearns, Matt Arnold, or other people in the staff for the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers have denied the Mets access each and every time while those people have been under contract. Now, after initially having that same belief with Counsell, they've changed up their ways and have decided to grant early access for Counsell and the Mets prior to his contract's expiration at the end of the month. And why is this so important? It's the Brewers are finally laying back and realizing, okay, us being petty is not going to change anything. If Counsell wants to stay here, then he's going to stay here. If not, he's going to go elsewhere. So we might as well just give him that permission now. Finally, is my response to that. Long overdue. You know, maybe if you operate in a similar fashion in years past, that could have benefited your chances of maybe keeping some of these guys going forward, should you have any interest in actually giving them the money that they're worth as well. But I know I digress here. But now let's get into, okay, what's the latest on this front? Yes, we know that the Mets and Counsell have pretty much been looking like a match made in heaven, at least from the public eye, the media eye. Now, of course, there's a lot more factors that go into this, and that's why we've talked at great length about every single thing regarding Counsell and the Mets at this point. So if you haven't checked out that previous content, highly implore you to do so. But the latest updates here with Counsell is not only that, yes, he's been granted permission, but over the past couple days, we have seen reports as well to indicate that there is a willingness and an interest level from Counsell to a degree on working in a big market and being open and willing to work with David Stearns again there in Queens. Now, it shouldn't come as a shock to anyone that the Mets look like a potential favorite for this to happen. At this rate, many people are under the belief that if Counsell does not land in Queens, people will be more surprised than not. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of other clubs that are showing interest in Counsell, and that is highlighted by the Cleveland Guardians that apparently are interested in giving a sustainable, something of substance money-wise to present to Counsell. Now, that type of money from a small market club, very similarly ran from the Brewers this time in the Guardians, can they even remotely match what Steve Cohen can do as easily making him the highest paid manager in baseball? No, I do not anticipate that being the case whatsoever, and I don't think anyone should believe otherwise. But you see themselves, the Padres, among plenty of other clubs that are in the market for a new manager, you know that they're at minimum going to be chiming in and doing their due diligence when you have Counsell, who easily looks like on paper the best managerial candidate available this offseason for any club that has the luxury of landing him. But now let's get into this dynamic not only between Counsell but David Stearns. Why is this important? Well, they had their great success together from 2015 up until this past year or so between the front office and the coaching staff. And this is a Counsell, mind you, that had a 16-year career, right? He was out of baseball for a short time, was in a front office role with the Milwaukee Brewers prior to accepting their managerial spot in which he's had for the past 4 or 5 plus years now. And his rapport, not only with his teammates, that being, of course, the guys he's coaching, feels like teammates, though, as someone in himself that as a former player played so long and isn't far removed at all from the last time he played a game of baseball as a player. But he has not only that respect in the clubhouse, but he has this drive and this willingness to really get the best out of players and give them a reason to be playing hard. You know, give them that extra incentive as a relatable player who basically had a 20-year career in baseball and has continued that right away from front office into a managerial opening. So there are so many reasons as to why Counsell is viewed as one of, if not the best managers in the game of baseball as is. And now you're telling me he's a free agent? Well, this is exactly why the Mets and David Stearns, they eat this up for breakfast, because as soon as this type of interview happens, you'd have to imagine, I'm going to go on a limb and say we're not doing the normal handshake. It's got to be the handshake and the dap, you know, bring it in, you know, the kind of the dap hug. I'm expecting that personally between Stearns and Counsell, and who actually knows what happens with that one. I'm just getting ahead of myself here. Point is that this is a type of interview where you know they have that extensive rapport with each other over the number of years in Milwaukee. The only manager that David Stearns has worked with as a GM in that President Baseball operations was that being in Counsell here. And all Counsell knows front office wise, for the most part, is David Stearns. They've had a great connection over the years. So you'd have to imagine, okay, David Stearns, what does he want in a manager? Well, he said it himself. He wants someone that will have a proper dynamic between himself, and that being the manager, that there's a proper dynamic from the coaching staff to the front office, that there's equal understanding, there's collaborative work. They're really on the same level with each other at all times. And David Stearns has had that connection, certainly to the degree that we assume have seen publicly to this point with the Brewers, with Counsell. So you have this interview come on, and I could just imagine Stearns kind of being like, we can do more of the same pretty much, but on a higher scale now. Imagine what we can do now being in New York together with an endless payroll, something that we have the exact opposite of during our time in Milwaukee. I know how much you want to win, Craig, and I know how much I want to, that being David speaking on his behalf here. And together with the money, with the resources, and the connection we already have, how is this not going to be a great fit? I'm going to go on a limb and assume that to a degree. And that's why the Mets having David Stearns already in this situation gives them such an upper hand. They have one of the best guys imaginable, if not the best guy imaginable, at least on paper from what we know to the public point of view between those two in their relationship. You're going to go and assume that it's been a positive one. And there's a reason why the Mets are so adamant about interviewing him, and that across the industry as a whole, there's a wide range belief that the Mets are going to land Counsell versus not landing him. So while there are other teams, of course, showing interest, and will even have a heavy pursuit, and of course he's going to weigh his options, nothing is set in stone, nothing is guaranteed in the Mets' favor. When I present all the factors I've stated to this point, on top of a approved willingness to potentially be managing in a bigger market, unlike he has before, having the connection over the past decade with David Stearns, half decade at minimum, and knowing the potential that they could have together for something special in New York. There's just so many reasons as to why this feels like a near perfect fit. And not only that, if we're taking away the David Stearns aspect, if the Mets still had Billy Epler running the show right now, everything that didn't happen with him most recently, then I would still be a heavy advocate and still believing that Counsell is 100% the best option out there. So having Stearns now, a guy who has this rapport with him, is not only cherry on top, but it should hopefully be a play that is in the Mets' advantage to a degree where other teams can't compete. And then, you add the millions of dollars that Steve Cohen can present you, giving you around $5 million at minimum, I feel like at minimum per year, to make you the highest paid manager in baseball. Remember, that's around the same kind of money that Buck Showalter got on his multi-year deal there in Queens. And even if the Guardians, say, present a sustainable offer, are they going to be able to give him even $4 million per year? I think that's doubtful. Of course, I could be proven wrong, but Cleveland is a team that is always balling on a budget with their money as is. Why would it be much different than what's been happening in Milwaukee? And on top of that, a similarly ran organization, is that appealing to someone like Counsell here, or is he more willing for a new exciting challenge while having a familiar person alongside him that he knows how to grow with in a front office and a coaching dynamic as is? So a lot of things to weigh here, but one thing is certain: the latest updates on Craig Counsell and the Mets to this point have continued to lean in the direction to make you believe that this feels a matter of when versus if the hire will be happening. And of course, the Mets have been very adamant in stating that yes, they'll be doing a very extensive search for their manager, as they have to weigh options A all the way through Z, because say Counsell doesn't want to come here, say he, after weighing his options, he does want to go to Cleveland. Maybe he wants to take a year away from baseball. Maybe he wants to stay in Milwaukee. Maybe he wants to go to San Diego for all we know, or somewhere else. Point is that you need to make sure you eliminate as many uncertainties as possible in a search like this, which is why the Mets will be doing their best with their due diligence as they have in recent years, when of course you see the endless people that are listed as potential managerial candidates, and kind of go things from there. So Mets fans, baseball fans, whoever you're a fan of, I want to know your initial reactions in the comments below and your overall thoughts on the latest updates as the Mets are set to interview Craig Counsell for the Brewers finally allowed access. Do you think that this hire will be happening? And if so, when do you expect it to happen? If not, who could you see the Mets also interviewing that maybe has been spoken publicly to this point? Whatever your thoughts are, make sure to drop them down below. And of course, Mets fans, stay tuned for consistent content, not only everything on the managerial front, because I know that these topics can get a little long-winded at times because it sounds like more of the same, but for the fans that appreciate all the latest updates for when I'm not doing live shows and sharing that, hope you guys certainly enjoy this one, and stay tuned for the consistent coverage on all things NYM all off season long here on WardyNYM. Thank you again, folks, and as always, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.